Historical photos aren't just pictures from yellowed pages, they're doorways into a world where the past comes alive before our eyes. Behind every frame lies drama, mystery, a cry, and silence all at once. These images freeze time, ripping a moment from the chaos of centuries and turning it into eternity. They don't show textbook heroes, but real people with pain, joy, fears, and dreams. And the most thrilling part? You never know what's hidden behind the lens. Greatness, horror, or a single moment that could change the fate of millions. Imagine this. Pilot George Aird ejects at a height where survival is nearly impossible and lands straight into a greenhouse, as if fate itself had laid out a glass parachute. And yes, he survived. (1943). Scouts wade through icy waters where each breath sounds like a challenge to time itself. No romance here, only a cold, brutal school of survival. In 1950s London, it wasn't all tuxedos and royal ceremonies. Princess Margaret and young Elizabeth knew how to enjoy life, breaking the stereotype of a cold monarchy. Amid World War II, American soldiers witnessed Mount Vesuvius come alive again, the fiery mouth of history opening right before them. War and nature clash in a single frame. In 1949, the Pamir sails its final trade voyage around Cape Horn under full sail, as if bidding farewell to the age of wind. What followed was a tragic end. The 19th century embraced science on the edge of absurdity. Vibration therapy was real, but no, there was never a sledgehammer in the doctor's hand. That was a myth, now a symbol of the era's medical imagination. (1898). Beneath London, workers dig vast tunnels to create the central line of the underground, building what feels like a new subterranean city. This photo captures the breadth of the engineering revolution. (1945). Jewish prisoners step off a death train, and in their eyes, pain and joy are entwined. This image freezes the moment when hope finally returned after hell. A Chinese criminal in a cangu, a heavy wooden frame used as punishment, its weight reflecting his guilt. His crime is written on a sign, and beside him, a man feeds him, a human gesture in a system built on suffering. 1914. Blind children feel a raised relief globe, trying to understand a world they will never see with their own eyes. Bolshevik direction, 1941. A column of Soviet motorcyclists halts on the highway before the next battle. A moment of silence before the storm, even the engines have gone quiet. In Berlin, inside a 12-meter wind tunnel, engineers test a Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighter plane. The photo looks torn from a dystopia, progress racing forward, unaware that these wings would soon be weapons of death. These wide-legged pants became popular among Oxford and Cambridge students in 1920 after breeches were banned in lectures. The last photo of Queen Min of Korea, a woman whose wisdom and foresight terrified her enemies. Soon her life would be cut short, and with it, her country's independence. Nagasaki, 1945. A boy stands at a cremation site with his dead brother on his back. In his motionless posture lies more tragedy than in hundreds of books on war. (1940s). early divers in heavy suits whose helmets made them look more like aliens than explorers. USSR, 1960. Children wait in line for a spoonful of cod liver oil. On their faces, a familiar resignation, as health came in the taste of oil and salt. Adults and children return to their village after the front and evacuation. Their footsteps feel like a quiet confession. War breaks even the paths back home. In 1906, the liner Mauretania is launched, the fastest ship of its time. But behind the gleaming steel lies the fierce ambition of nations racing against each other, as if the ocean itself were just a battleground. In Brittany in 1920, 3 women bend over their lacework, each stitch in their hands like a prayer woven into a pattern. Back in 1912, Americans tested football helmets in ways that turned each blow into agony. Safety was born at the cost of someone else's pounding headache. When Sweden abolished left-hand traffic in 1967, morning turned to chaos. The roads looked like a chessboard where all the pawns forgot the rules. In 1964, Ringo Starr captured students who had skipped class for the Beatles. Half a century later, in 2013, those same faces reunited, older now, but still with youth burning in their eyes. On the streets of West Germany in the 1950s, a futuristic stroller didn't look ugly exactly, just strangely out of place. During World War I, soldiers listened to the sky through awkward acoustic horns, a strange and clumsy attempt at early detection that made them look, to put it mildly, ridiculous. In the brutal winter of 1941, a Soviet ski battalion advanced toward the front lines through endless snow, the whiteness swallowing their steps, leaving only silence behind. In the Belgian mines of the 1920s, the workday ended with a cramped elevator ride to the surface. And cramped is putting it lightly. In 1932, Germany was building the massive Hindenburg, and the construction itself felt like theater from the future. The spectacle was so surreal. At the height of war in 1941, a mother rocked her baby inside a special infant gas suit, herself hidden behind a mask, a photo where love and fear live side by side. In 1932, Charles Ebbets captured the famous shot of workers eating lunch on a steel beam in New York. The photo became a symbol of fearlessness, of both the workers and the man behind the camera. In New Orleans in 1960, 6-year-old Ruby Bridges walked to school under police escort. This little girl was breaking down the walls of racism where adults feared to even take a step. In 1942, the transatlantic liner Normandy never got a chance to sail. It became a wreck right there in New York Harbor. On the Kursk Bridge in summer 1943, a captured German soldier sits beside a broken gun. The defeat isn't written on his face, but in the silence of metal that has lost its voice. On the front lines, soldiers had only a moment of quiet to eat. War taught them even bread could be swallowed in the midst of fear. Soviet peasants rushed to save burning grain set aflame by retreating Germans. Their desperate fight was not for harvest, it was for survival. In the early 20th century, Zeppelins soared over Berlin, pride of Germany, symbol of progress. But after the Hindenburg disaster in 1937, the whole era collapsed like a shattered dream. Sigmund Freud stands still while sculptor Oscar Niemann shapes his bust. In that silence, there's irony. The man who dissected the souls of others was now turning into a cold stone. In early 1950s London, cobalt therapy was a breakthrough in cancer treatment. Gamma rays from cobalt-60 attacked tumors and brought hope. Yet for some reason, this method was never further developed. On May 27, 1937 in San Francisco, 200,000 people walked across the Golden Gate Bridge, a single day when the steel arch belonged not to cars, but to people. New York, 1888. Swallowed by the Great Blizzard, against towering snowdrifts, a lone figure looked like a helpless grain of sand, lost in a white ocean. In Vietnam, a small child clings to his father, tied by soldiers as a suspected partisan. A frame where love and fear intertwine stronger than any accusation. On New Year's Eve 1965, 3 American icebreakers pushed back an iceberg stuck near McMurdo Station. Tiny against the frozen giant, the ships kept the gateway to Antarctica open. London, 1914. Police arrest Emmeline Pankhurst, one of the fiercest suffragettes. 6 years remained until victory, but this moment already carried the scent of future freedom. Summer 1941. In fields once golden with wheat, people now try to salvage what little remains, under the roar of enemy planes and guarded by soldiers. January 1945, Auschwitz. Those who survive the camp's hell step out through its gates, their faces a blend of disbelief and exhausted hope. At Ullevål Hospital in Oslo, 1905, women visit quarantined friends and family through walls and windows, but with warmth undiminished. After the marathon where she became the first female participant, she rests, exhausted, but wearing a triumphant smile. During the war, the British tested a crane mounted on the Matilda II tank to evacuate wounded crew, a simple yet desperately needed invention. St. Moritz, Switzerland, 1932. A waiter on skates pours cocktails. Resort life for those who skied by day and dine on oysters and foie gras by night. Belarus, 1944. A Soviet 152mm D1 howitzer battery fires on German positions. Even from a photo, the power of that moment shakes you to the core. French village, World War I. A mother and child prepare food while wearing gas masks. Dinner becomes a lesson in survival. September 1943, crossing the Dnieper. Soaked and freezing soldiers step into history, though at a terrible cost. Josephine Baker fought racism not with words, but action. She adopted 12 children from different ethnic backgrounds. In the photo, she holds the 10th, a boy from Venezuela. Slovakia, 1966. Even grandmothers took to the swings. Though the smiles are the same, their outfits reflect the strict dress codes of the time. Victory Parade, 1945. Thousands of troops march through Red Square. The photo is somber and gray, as if the emotions are restrained, though joy boiled just beyond the frame. This is how the window cleaning of the Empire State Building, one of the tallest and most famous skyscrapers in the world, looked like. The 1930s, New York, USA. This worker works on the edge of the Empire State Building under construction with no safety measures, 1930. This is a family of loggers with a 1,300-year-old giant sequoia that was 100 meters high, California, 1892. A portable detention cell for police officers. This was a unique innovation in the field of law enforcement, which was used by the Los Angeles Traffic Police. It was intended for the transportation of violators of traffic rules, 1920. This is the so-called crazy chair in a Dutch psychiatric hospital. Patients with bad behavior or wild outbursts were placed there. This photo was taken in 1938. American Robert Wadlow is the tallest man in history, respectively, and the man with the longest arms in the 1930s. A reconnaissance pigeon with a small camera from the time of the First World War, 1915. Then they were actively used to fix enemy concentrations and fortifications. This curious photo was taken on May 11, 1961. It shows how salesman Mike Dreschler is refueling his motorized roller skates at a gas station near Hartford, Connecticut. He has a single-power air-cooled engine mounted on his back, and in his hand, he holds the clutch, accelerator, and engine switch. It was a very unusual invention, as if it were their future. It's hard to imagine, but this kind of electric cars were in 1911. The photo shows the process of charging a car in a garage in New York. This is a real miracle of technology. In front of you is a luxury air-conditioned lawnmower from the 1950s. Lightweight futuristic American SRAM Javelist helicopter, 1965. There were 2 seats in it, and it was intended for personal use. The 1969 Mercedes-Benz C111 is one of the most famous experimental concept cars of all time. Its notable features were the seagull wing-type doors, a luxury suede interior, a fiberglass body, and a 3-section Wankel rotary engine. This is the aerial view of more than 400,000 people at the 1969 Woodstock Festival. It was one of the most epic and famous concerts in the history of music, held on August 15th through 17th, 1969 in Bethel, New York, at Max Yasgur's farm. The first staff of Google, 1999. Now this is a funny reaction of a Frenchman who tasted Coca-Cola for the first time, 1950. This is a road cafe in the USA in the 1950s. This is what snowstorm protection masks looked like in Canada in the 1930s. A tower consisting of confiscated barrels of alcohol ready to be burned during Prohibition, USA, 1929. This is the Mercury Streamliner passenger train in Chicago in the 1930s. War forced children to study even in bombed-out schools, sitting at desks without a roof overhead, trying to preserve some sense of normalcy. During the Cold War, students practiced duck and cover drills over and over, hiding under desks as if that could save them from a nuclear blast. Today, those scenes feel touchingly naive. After World War I, cavalrymen gathered for a photo in memory of fallen animals. Over 8 million horses and donkeys perished in that slaughter. The image shows 650 officers and soldiers from the mounted depot. Potsdam, summer 1945. In a group photo, world leaders decide the future, each aware that a new global power balance lies ahead. In the polar latitudes during the war, Soviet sailors adopted a bear cub named Masha, 1941 to 1943, and in the photo, she looks more like a household pet than a force of Arctic wildness. April 15, 1912, the cold Atlantic Ocean. In a small lifeboat drift the few who survived the Titanic disaster. Their faces are weary and their eyes empty. Czechoslovakia, 1970s. Railway snow was cleared not with shovels, but with an MiG-15 jet engine. The snow shot skyward in clouds, making the cleanup look more like an air show than a chore. Famous scientist Nikola Tesla sits in his laboratory in Colorado Springs next to a high-voltage generator, December 1899. This is a Russian soldier playing the piano, Chechnya, 1994. Albert Einstein with a friend at Nassau Point, New York, 1939. A man takes away a part of the statue of Stalin after its dismantling, Budapest, Hungary, 1990s. This photo shows mechanics and inspectors of TWA Airlines with hubcaps on their heads engaged in the spring overhaul of giant transport aircraft at the airport, May 8, 1941, New York, LaGuardia Field. This is actress Sophia Loren in her dressing room, 1963. Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting Mona Lisa returns to the Louvre after the end of World War II, Paris, France, 1945. This is a punt gun. In fact, this is a type of very huge shotgun used in the 19th and early 20th centuries to hunt waterfowl. More than 40 ducks on the surface of the water could be killed in one shot. Stylishly dressed Al Capone and his friends in the 1930s. This was the menu of the last lunch on board the Titanic on April 14, 1912. Now this is the Tasmanian tiger. The last known animal was photographed at the Berlin Zoo in 1933. It is now considered extinct. This is the American-built Walker electric truck with an electric wheelchair on board, used by the Avahuri Dairy Company, New Zealand, 1918. This is the Super Bowl VII helmet cart. This photo was taken on January 14, 1973 in Los Angeles. At that time, the Miami Dolphins defeated the Washington Redskins with a score of 14-7 and became the champions. Now take a look at the soldiers who worked as electricians, 1918. Fidel Castro gives an interview to a journalist in his car, Cuba, 1964. Workers at an altitude of almost 60 meters above the ground are building the Hindenburg, the largest rigid airship in history, 1930s Germany. An Air Force nurse helps unload canisters from a C-47 aircraft, Reims, France, September 1944. The Vespa ACMA Sidecar is an unusual-looking scooter of the iconic Italian brand that began production of scooters in 1946 and continues to this day. This unusual 1951 model with a Stibe stroller was the most stylish all-weather road scooter that could be found. The founder of American rocket technology, Wernher von Braun, stands next to the F-1 engines that took a man to the moon, 1969. One of the unique features of winter Detroit is the ice fountain on Washington Boulevard, 1940s. Several jets of water beat all winter, resulting in massive icebergs of ice reaching a height of 9 meters, and in especially cold years, up to 18 meters. Soldiers of the 363rd Field Artillery Battalion used Japanese barber chair for cutting hair during World War II. June 10, 1945, Shuri, Okinawa, Japan. Now this is a Red Army soldier on duty on the telephone, USSR, 1925. This is inventor Chester E. McDuffie standing next to one of the first atmospheric diving suits, weighing almost 250 kilograms, 1911. Padang women ask for directions from a London policeman in 1935. They are also called the giraffe women because of their unusually long necks on which brass spirals are worn, and all this is for beauty. This is an image of a German car with spring wheels due to the shortage of rubber caused by the First World War, 1917, Germany. Girls demonstrating different types of protective masks as part of the popularization of industrial safety measures, USA, 1940. Paul Arzens and his concept car called the Electric Egg, 1942. He built it with his own hands and used an electric motor since gasoline in France was seized by the Nazis for the needs of the war. This is what one of the first microcars in history looked like. Soviet sports car Gaz Torpedo on trials, 1951. Little-known singer Debbie Hoare in a conical bib, which will become one of the hallmarks of Madonna's style before the Pop Music Awards ceremony, February 1985. Marilyn Monroe at a party, July 8, 1958 in Beverly Hills. On May 27, 1987, in Alba Iulia, Romania, an apartment building with a length of 100 meters and a weight of 7,600 tons was moved to create a boulevard. The whole operation was successful even without evicting the tenants in less than 6 hours. Moreover, even after more than 30 years, the building is still safe and sound. Chukotka, 1950. During military drills, soldiers offer condensed milk to polar bears. It's hard to tell who outnumbers whom, men or beasts, but one thing's clear, even harsh climates didn't stop the search for amusement. Amid the ruins of a bombed-out London home in the 1940s, a girl sits rocking her doll, trying to restore a piece of the world that no longer exists around her. Soldiers drag a Soviet 45mm gun up a hill by hand, war scenes without heroic gloss, just sweat, exhaustion, and the weight of survival. New York, October 8, 1959. Barber school students practice shaving on balloons. Each popped client turns the lesson into a noisy spectacle. This photo was called The Leap to Freedom. The date of the shooting and the identity of the people in the photo are unknown. This is the HZ-1 Aerocycle, a compact single-person aircraft from the 1950s. A German soldier defies orders to help a boy climb over the emerging Berlin Wall so the child can return to his family. America, 1949. Fashion shows were held on a New York-Hartford train, a rare eccentric event for which a special train was launched more for spectacle than passengers. Near Moscow in October 1941, thousands of civilians dig anti-tank trenches by hand, a massive, grueling effort that became a shield against the advancing army. A photo in front of the Great Sphinx of Giza, 1920. (1855), the first ever photograph of the Taj Mahal. The now world-famous monument appeared hazy and strangely empty back then. The past had it all, from record-breaking feats like sleepless, foodless dance marathons to horrific experiments that today seem more like madness than science. The Children's Round Dance Fountain, after a 1943 German bombing raid, stands among its ruins. The contrast between innocence and destruction sends chills down the spine. First century AD Rome. A mosaic depicting a fish proves that humanity valued visual storytelling long before books or written texts. (1944) Orot Peninsula. American soldiers lean not over wounded comrades, but over a dog, treating it with the same care they'd give a fellow soldier. This is what women's fashion of the 1960s looked like. At that time, the sexual revolution was gaining momentum, which allowed women in many countries of the world to dress more openly and elegantly. Bruce Lee with his son Brandon, 1966. At that time, no one knew that they would both leave a huge mark on the history of world cinema, which Bruce would be able to do in just 7 years. Fashion has always been weird, even hundreds of years ago. This is a photo from the International Hairstyle Exhibition in Toronto in 1940. A bit like the usual hairstyles of the 18th century French queen Marie Antoinette. The famous comedian Leslie Nielsen and Debbie Reynolds during the filming of the romantic comedy Tammy and the Bachelor, 1957. Nielsen's taking on roles in many motion pictures will be the key to his long-term fame. Beautiful girls and their beautiful photos have no statute of limitations. You can admire them again and again. And our episode has come to an end, and we hope that you enjoyed watching this video. We look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you for always being with us.